Welcome to the Cybersecurity podcast from Lightspeed. I'm your host, Lightspeed partner, Guru Chahal. Today I'm speaking with Vitaly Gudanets, the Chief Information Security Officer at Anthropic. At Lightspeed, we partnered with Anthropic a few years ago as one of the largest investors in the Series D. Then we led the Series E and recently co-led the Series F capital raise. We believe the next generation of AI will be defined by safety and trust, and Anthropic is leading that standard. Vitaly joined Anthropic earlier this year after leading security at two of the most iconic tech companies in the world. First, for over a decade at Google, and then as the CISO at Netflix. In today's conversation, we'll cover three main topics: how Vitaly thinks about securing the most critical assets in the world today, which is leading-edge AI.
Anthropic is very different that way, right? It's on par with other hyperscalers like Google, Amazon of the world, where you are a significant target for a lot of threat actors, including state-sponsored nation states, of course. So risk appetite is very different. And the risk of losing those model weights or model weights being stolen is really high. Right? And not just for the company as part of our IP, the powerful models in their own hands will have a significant societal impact. There is national security considerations we have to worry about at scale.
How Vitaly is thinking about the evolution of the CISO role in this brave new era of AI.
The reason why we exist is to enable business. If the business are not enabled, if they're slowed down because of friction with the security, the business could shut down, business could die, revenue growth slows, right? There's impact on efficiency. So we need to be always mindful of what are we protecting and what are we enabling. And business enablement is a huge change or shift in the industry, probably in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, where the most successful CISOs are able to sit at the table, not just at the board of director levels, but at the executive level and speak the business.
And how organizations can structure themselves to respond to an era where technologies as well as threats can emerge almost overnight.
Security teams need to be non-blocking. We need to find a way to enable business to move extremely fast, but do it in a safe way. Focus on paved roads, focus on building guardrails. Being non-blocking becomes more and more critical. Things like secure by design, for example, become even more mission critical because you do want to create the least resistance possible, right? Find a way that you can pull the systems in place and build systems where security happens by default.
Vitaly, welcome to the Cybersecurity podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the most interesting question. You recently joined Anthropic. Given where Anthropic sits, given the kind of research it's doing, I cannot think of more critical infrastructure than Anthropic. I cannot think of a bigger role. So congratulations.
Thank you.
What attracted you to Anthropic?
That's a great question. So as you said, Anthropic kind of sits at this critical junction, right? Not just one of the most critical and leading research firms in the world. It's all about the mission, right? And mission, what really strongly resonated with me, it's about using and building reliable and safe models. And that resonated extremely strongly with me. Being in the security space, safety and security go hand in hand a lot. And we've been focusing on this for a long time. But if you think about how quickly AI has evolved and possibly in the next 2-3 years, we can get to some vision or some version of AGI, safety becomes one of the most critical components. We need to ensure that not only the model provides value to the society, we actually do everything possible to make sure that it's reliable and it's safe. I have young kids. In their future, AI is going to be there one way or another. And I want to make sure that we build something that leaves that lasting legacy that's going to provide the safety, reliability, and provide societal impact in a positive way.
It's really interesting. The CISO role is defined in so many different ways in different companies. When you were interviewing, so you haven't joined Anthropic yet, when you're interviewing with the team, what impression did you get as to how they want to define the CISO role? Was it more traditional, hey, just keep us secure, keep the boundaries of the organization secure? Or given their trust and safety focus, it was a bit more expansive? I'm curious how that conversation went and what about that attracted you to Anthropic?
I think in some way it's traditional role, right? You're still responsible for standard aspects of security, product security, OPSEC, detection and response, vulnerability management, corporate security. None of that changes. The scale is very different, right? The velocity is extremely different. But in terms of just day-to-day general responsibilities are the same for any company, right? The bigger differences around trust and safety components, even though it might not be directly in my area of responsibility, I work very closely with our frontier red teams, with the safeguards teams around how do we ensure the models are safe, and not only our crown jewels, but the usage of the models is beneficial and safe for the society. So during the interview process, I focus heavily around that mission alignment questions, right? What does it truly mean? You read everything externally, you partner and engage with some of the people in the security industry, people like Jason Clinton, who was a CISO previously at Anthropic. So I had some connective tissue there. But until you start actually talking to the founders, to people internally, it's really hard to grasp how quickly it's moving, how quickly it's evolving, and how critical the mission is. So in some ways, it's a traditional role, but the scale, the impact is very, very different.
Yeah. You know how you join a new company and you always have like these two feelings in the first week. The first one is, wow, this is amazing. I'm so glad I joined. And the second feeling, which is like, holy moly, this is interesting. Was there a moment when in that first week, you're like, wow, this is different?
Oh, yeah. I think it was in the first 4 hours in my onboarding. I've been doing this for a long time, 30 plus years. So I knew not to have any level of expectations because they're going to be wrong, right? You can only learn so much externally and during the interview process, right? So my onboarding, I think, lasted about 4 hours before I got pulled into really big initiatives that are going on within the company. And at that very quickly, I realized this is not a normal company, right? It's not just not moving at the normal speed, but things that we're doing are at such a massive scale and such a fast velocity that you better be in your game every single day, every single hour, or you're going to be left behind. Reminds me a little bit of early Google, kind of the same, to some degree, chaotic environment, and chaotic in a good way because we're trying to do big things that probably haven't been done before. Like tremendous amount of smart people. Everybody's so mission aligned, and it makes my life actually a little easier, right? As a CISO, one of the hardest parts of your job is convincing people to do something they might not want to do, right? People can really care about security, but it's usually top 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 priorities on everybody's list, right? It's great to be in a company where people truly care and understand the value it brings to the table. So it makes our life easier, but also puts a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah, I love that about your role. I mean, it's just so incredible to see, you working at an organization where trust and safety and alignment are part of the core mission. As a CISO, that's so empowering. And I agree with how you put it. You're not fighting the organization. It's not like the organization wants to go this way and the security team is pushing them this way. It is aligned. You're part of the conversation. You're getting pulled in. I do believe truly that this is something we'll see in the broader cybersecurity industry, where we as cybersecurity insiders are going to be first-class citizens in that discussion around how to build a business.
That's right. But we do need to show up differently, right? Than maybe in the past, where just because the culture understands the value of security, right? There's still going to be some healthy friction there. And I think it's a good thing, right? Security teams need to be non-blocking. We need to find a way to enable business to move extremely fast, but do it in a safe way. So the focus on paved roads, focus on building guardrails, being non-blocking becomes more and more critical. Things like secure by design, for example, right, become even more mission critical because you do want to create the least resistance possible, right? Find a way that you can pull the systems in place and build systems where security happens by default, right? Private by design also, right? It's not easy, because company has to move extremely fast, right? Being not just a high-tech company, we're a very large leading research facility. We have policy work that we're doing. So there's a lot of mission critical, important things for society. So how do we balance the risk with the ability to move faster to enable that impact is a challenge for a lot of people. And honestly, we haven't figured it out yet at scale. It's something we're going to continue learning together and then moving forward.
I also love that Anthropic has a culture of actually communicating broadly with the community. So hopefully we'll get to hear more from you. And I agree, like industry has to, we as in cyber have to move from, hey, don't ride that motorcycle to here's a helmet, ride the motorcycle, but I'm going to make sure you're healthy and safe as well. Let's talk a little bit about that journey to Anthropic. You've had an incredible career. How did you get into cybersecurity? And then walk us through that time at Google, Because that just feels like such a formative time in the company's history. And then we'll cover Netflix in a bit as well.
So I've been doing this for a long time, as I said, 30 plus years, and I've always been around high tech. I started as a systems engineer many, many years ago, building computers, white boxes, moving into Unix, Linux, Windows OSs, then became network engineer pretty quickly and joined companies like Veritas Software, SanDisk, Symantec at the time. And always as part of network security, systems level security, I've been around security for a long time, never had direct responsibility early in my career, but always had to think about how do you do network security? How do you do system security? Eventually, as I became a leader and moved into larger leadership roles, security operations became part of the scope. As a CIO prior to Google, security was part of my remit. So I've always been either directly connected to the security or kind of right on the outskirts of it for probably 35 years now. When I started at Google, I actually took a different route at first. My first part of my life at Google, first, I think 7 years, I worked in the data center space. So I was part of the teams that not just built the massive scale of Google at which it operated, but also made sure that all the infrastructure, physical infrastructure, compute, network infrastructure inside the Google data centers was up and running. All the hardware components were operating optimally, working with a lot of teams like SRE, a lot of teams across Google to make sure.
That was really cutting edge work.
It was at the
These
time.
were the best, the most forward-looking data centers in the world. That must have been really exciting.
It was exciting. It was new. It was massive scale, something that I've never done before. No one actually done it before, right? That's you can probably argue AWS, maybe Microsoft and Google were probably top 3 leading data center companies in the world at the time. And then Meta was catching up. And it was very informative. And I learned so much during that experience. And about 7 years into my career, I switched to security engineering, and I had the opportunity to work with some of the brightest security minds in the world, securing that infrastructure at scale. And it was a massive problem, and I learned so much from it.
Right. And then, Google is evolving all the time. I'm sure you have new challenges. What causes that switch to Netflix?
I was at Google for almost 13 years, and I learned tremendous amount from a lot of people. And when Netflix called, it was something different, something new industry. Never worked in the entertainment industry before. Netflix had very strong engineering culture, engineering reputation. It was very different and unique culture that Reed Hastings and Ted created over time. And it just sparked my interest. There are also massive scale problems to solve, very different approach. Netflix was one of the first cloud native companies and one of the largest cloud native companies at the time. And they had some unique problems to solve at scale also, and decided, I've been here for a long time. Let's try something new. And that was a good decision.
Sometimes in hindsight, these things look very planned. But it's really interesting how that happened. Like you're at Google, you're getting exposed to massive scale, which you now bring to Anthropic. And at Netflix, you're working in an organization that really values culture, right, which is, again, now at Anthropic. So it's in an interesting way, it's sort of like the two worlds, combining, and you're bringing the best from both sort of places. I love it. It's a good fit. Let's dig into AI a little bit more. Now you're inside this amazing frontier machine. AI is amazing technology. It can be used for any use case. Defenders are going to use it to get better, but so will, in some cases, attackers. Just at the highest level, right now, who do you feel is ahead? Are defenders, in your view, as focused on using AI in cyber, or is it that the attackers have taken the first step?
As a practitioners, I think we're behind. Right. And you see it every day in the news, right? Attackers getting smarter, they getting more efficient. Time to market for exploits is getting faster and faster, and we're behind. And I think some of it has to do maybe with lack of trust. It's hard to tell what's real, what's not. You have tremendous amount of security vendors coming in, trying to sell you some AI technology, AI functionality, and it's really hard to find what's real, what's not. So I think as defenders, we're taking maybe a slower approach around trust but verify, right? We're doing a lot of POC with companies, trying to understand what's real, what's not. There's still some basic distrust of AI technology at some circles, right? We always want to to have human in the loop, especially on the defender side. You don't want to completely outsource things to AI that maybe you don't have a good understanding of. So I think basic answers we're behind, and we need to get a lot better, because not only attack vectors are changing, the scale at which they operate is changing very, very quickly. The techniques are evolving. Like I said, time to market for exploits is much, much faster. The need to detect attacks is now becoming in minutes, if not seconds, right? In the past, maybe we had time to detect and respond. Now it happens so quickly, we get overwhelmed. And we need AI to help to actually scale those operations for us.
Yeah, that's a great observation. In both your circles and mine, we're observing this. Security has always been this constant loop of, you get ahead and the attackers get ahead. But right now it's just faster and faster and faster. And this time to getting attacked with something new is just compressing, which frankly, the only way to address that is using AI to fight AI in the heads of the attackers. The one thing that stands out to me is it is very clear that even compared to the other labs, Anthropic has really focused on talking about not just trust and security and alignment, but using their models for finding vulnerabilities, using the models in cybersecurity use cases. Talk to us a little bit more about that. Was that also part of why you were attracted to Anthropic, and how are you helping the team more deeply understand cybersecurity use cases so that Anthropic continues to get better?
That's a great question. Now, keep in mind, I've only been there about 8 weeks, so I'm still learning a lot and ramping up. I think ability to use Claude in the cybersecurity space probably was one of the top 3 reasons why I joined, right? It was all about mission, it's about safety, but the big reason also is the capabilities that Claude already has and possibility of using Claude in the future to help us get more efficient, move ahead of attackers in many ways. Internally within Anthropic, we rely heavily on Claude in everything we do. And the quality of the code is continue to improve and evolve. Number of vulnerabilities that you see, basic classes of vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, starting to get eliminated in the code base, which is great. And you could see the uses not just within Anthropic, but across in industry. Of course, an automated SOC. If you have a SOC, AI does a great job there. We're starting to move more into predictive detection capabilities. Models are really good at finding vulnerabilities. Recently, I think it was at DEF CON, you saw a competition around, CFTs. You've got pen testing, automated red teaming, where you could see the value coming to the market more and more using the models, especially a model like Claude. So vulnerability scanning, pen testing, real-time, continuous red teaming. We see a lot of advantage. Code scanning is also an opportunity for us there. There's a lot of strong companies like SemGraph and others that operate in that space that add value. And I think some of the foundational models like ours are starting also to add some of the functionality to help in that space to bridge the gaps. So for defenders, I think there's tremendous opportunities. There's also a huge amount of risks, always, right? The AI is evolving so quickly without the right safe guardrails, not only societal impact, but also from a cybersecurity, there's tremendous risk and fear that as defenders we have, how quickly it's evolving. And like we talked a little earlier, we're a little behind. So we do need help from AI to defend against the AI attacks.
It's interesting, right? Like I've always viewed, because Anthropic and Claude are getting so much better at coding, cybersecurity feels the next adjacent sort of area, because at the end of the day, it's understanding that technology and how things are built helps you be a better cybersecurity practitioner. So I love Anthropic's focus on, taking that model that's already the best in the world at writing and understanding code, and now helping it writing and understanding security and security policies, etc.
That's right.
I know it's only been 8 weeks, but you're Anthropic. You're now deep in this world. If you could go back and give Vitaly at Netflix CISO some advice 6 months ago, a year ago, what advice would you give to that CISO at Netflix, knowing everything you know now? What would you do differently?
That's a deep question. I was very lucky, both at Google, of course, and at Netflix. I had tremendous talent in the team, right?
That is true. Very engineering-centric
Very engineering-centric, strong security engineering culture. Very different cultures from a company perspective, but from a security, it makes your life a lot easier where you have tremendous talent, right? Especially in the security team. So it made my life easier. The biggest advice probably now, again, 8 weeks in, the amount of surface we can cover with AI today from what I see from within the company, is a lot broader than I assumed externally. I think in a lot of places, there's still a little distrust of quality, hallucinations in AI space. So as security practitioners around it, we're a very pessimistic bunch, right? In many ways, we question everything. So we move a little slower because the risk is pretty high of getting this wrong, right? The only advice I would say, probably experiment more, take more risks to move faster.
Take more risks, experiment more, learn AI. What would you advise to the CISOs in your network on their hiring practices? Does this mean hire more sort of folks who are lean forward on AI or hire more engineers? Does something change in how you constitute security teams going forward?
That's actually a big question right now, I think, in the industry, right? In the CISO circles. Like, do we need to staff and hire people specifically with AI skills? Do we need to have a separate function that 100% focus on security in AI world, right? For most of enterprises, I think the answer is no at scale. Like, you don't need a large team that 100% focuses just on AI. But you do need to help not just hire, but also train your current staff to start utilizing AI tools. They have to deeply understand AI. They don't have to be AI researchers to do their job well, but they have to understand the tooling, the market, how AI is evolving, how quickly. And at some level, you do need dedicated AI expertise. Outside of frontier lab, hyperscalers, right? That's very different structure. But for most of enterprises, I don't think you'll see significant security growth in dedicated AI personnel, but AI skills have to be in a distributed way.
In that sense, don't you think Anthropic has a responsibility towards that too? Because you're sitting at the frontier, you're seeing this. And even for you at Netflix, which is you're a forward-leaning executive, Netflix is a forward-leaning organization, and you already are recognizing that, wow, I should have been experimenting more. I mean, just imagine downstream for the average enterprise sitting in the middle of Chicago somewhere. I mean, they don't know, right? So how are you thinking about, or are you thinking about Anthropic's role in driving more community engagement around the topics of cyber?
I think the answer is yes. There's always balance, right? We have a day-to-day jobs that we have to do. But I think Anthropic has done a great job in the last few years with a lot of external engagement, right? In the security community, broader community in the industry in general, around not just focusing on the safety of the mission, right? And the mission itself, but also how do we utilize some of the tooling internally, where we believe the industry is moving, trying to educate the industry around not just risk, but also capabilities, how to think about it at scale. So I think it is part of our responsibility to ensure that we help the industry, we help practitioners to get there faster, or at least understand the risks and how quickly things are changing. We can't, as practitioners, to wait 2-3 years for the industry to fix something. Things are moving much, much faster than before.
Right.
So there is a responsibility, and part of it actually part of our responsible scaling policy that we have, right? We do have a responsibility to society and to the industry to ensure that the model not just secure and reliable and safe, but also help people understand how to utilize it safely.
Yeah. One of the things that is unique about Anthropic, just coming back to your role now, if you're at Google, there's certainly great assets you need to protect. If you're at Netflix, there's media and all sorts of other things you need to protect. Anthropic has the model weights. How do you think about obviously, the criticality of that is this is critical infrastructure. How is the role different from what you were doing at Netflix in terms of urgency, critical infrastructure? Is there something on a day-to-day basis that you now do which is different from those two roles? Is there something unique about it?
I think you can look at it probably a couple ways. So one, very different culture, right? The threat model and the risk appetite is very different. Right? Where at Netflix, for example, crown jewels could mean something very different for the company, right? How you approach it from a risk balancing, risk right sizing is very different. Risk appetite may be much, much higher, right? Because you don't have to worry as much about being a target for tier 1 nation states, for example, or state sponsor actors. Anthropic is very different that way, right? It's on par with other hyperscalers like Google, Amazon of the world, where you are a significant target for a lot of threat actors, including state sponsored nation states, of course. So risk appetite is very different. And the risk of losing those model weights or model weights being stolen is really high, right? And not just for the company as part of our IP, the powerful models in their own hands will have a significant societal impact. There is national security considerations we have to worry about at scale, right? So very different risk profile and threat profile. So how you prioritize things, how you go after them is very different from, let's say, traditional and entertainment or media company to hyperscalers.
Right. I'm guessing this involves, compared to those previous roles, more of a public-private partnership too, because I can imagine the US government also being interested in saying, hey, these are national level assets. How can we help you, Vitaly, to protect them? So I'm sure there's a dialogue there, which could be different from the previous roles.
That's right. And, you engage at the policy level with the company, of course, because you want to make sure that the governments understand the risk and what's possible, what's not. We engage not just private-public cooperation, but there is a lot we can learn from another. So yeah, there is a deep involvement just overall from a policy perspective, from a relationship point of view, because the risk is really high.
In this role, at Anthropic, the kind of people you want to hire into the team, is there any difference from the folks you were hiring at Netflix or back at Google? Or is it's more of a personal question, I suppose. What kind of person do you like to hire, and has that evolved as you've gone from Google to Netflix to now at Anthropic?
If you think on a functional level, the skills you're looking for are the same.
Right.
Somebody who can operate at scale, who has experience defending against nation states, deep technical capabilities, either in specific domains or generalist roles, depending on which domain you're looking for. That probably is no different, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Google, or any other high-tech company. For us, what's extremely important is a cultural fit, mission alignment, right? We want to make sure that people join in the company, not purely because it's an interesting problem to solve, it's another hyper-growth company, but they truly understand, engage, and value the mission of the company, right? We have to put that first beyond any technical capabilities. I think that's a large difference between many companies I worked with before and where Anthropic is.
And then in terms of your leadership style, different people operate their teams differently. Jensen famously has, I think, 50 reports. How do you like to operate with your team?
My style hasn't actually changed that much. I've always believed in the transparency, always believed in the directness, being brutally honest with each other. That's how we learn and get better. And it always goes both ways. It's just not one-way communication. I focused a lot on mentorship, on development. That's probably the biggest thing that I love on part of my job, seeing people grow, develop, and potentially replace me in my roles, right? Succession planning is always a big part of my planning. My style has evolved over time, of course, but in general, it stayed true to who I am as a person, right? I deeply care about people. I want people to succeed. Of course, we focus heavily on results, mission alignment, but at the same time, we want to have fun. So having people that feel safe to be themselves, people who are not afraid to speak up, push back, question things. That's my style.
It's a high stress job though, right? It's high anxiety, high stress, 24/7 on, real time response. How do you keep your team from burning out?
8 weeks in, still trying to figure it out. You keep them focused on mission. Yeah. I think a lot of people understand what they get into when they get hired in Anthropic or a place like Google, for example, or Netflix, right? So you have to be very open and transparent during the interview pipeline to make sure people understand what they're getting into, right? Don't sell them on things like, oh, there's going to be a beautiful work-life balance. This is 9 to 5 kind of job. You actually want to do opposite. You want to anti-sell, right? Here's the reasons why you don't want to join Anthropic. Right. And that's kind of how you get through the FUD. And
that's a great point. Just top of funnel filtering. Say, let's just make sure you know exactly what you're, so there's fit and alignment on both sides.
So big focus on anti-sell, right? Here is many reasons why you shouldn't join this company. And then people understand what they're getting into. So it's a little easier because at the end of the day, this balance of work, your personal life, it's up to each one of us to figure out what's the right balance there is, right? And it is hard. Over years, you learn how to manage it, right? But it is a challenge, right? So being upfront with people around expectations, about the culture, around technical challenges. Also, don't forget there is a huge imposter syndrome that we all have. Doesn't matter how many years we've done it. And that's being honest about that, being vulnerable with people to show here is the gaps, here is where I'm still learning, this is where I'm struggling with things.
I love this answer. because it's not like, here's a magic bullet to reduce stress. It's like, we just make sure people who can handle the stress are the people we hire, which makes a ton of sense. Like,
Anthropic,
the job is the job.
That's right. Anthropic, we always talk about it, at least in the 8 weeks I've been there, I keep hearing the same message, which is it's not a normal company, which means it's not a place for normal people either, right? So anti-sell is actually a big part of our process.
Yeah, that's great. I want to take a step back and just ask a question about the larger cybersecurity industry. We are about a $250 billion industry today. I have absolute conviction we're going to be a $1 trillion industry in the next 10 to 15 years. As we've grown and will continue to grow, the role of the CISO has continued to evolve. We've gone from, hey, secure my infrastructure, to help me understand business risk, to now being business enablers. How are you thinking about this evolution, and what would be your, let's say, recommendation for CISOs who are early in their journey on how they can conduct, how they can position, how they can partner with their business counterparts, so we can continue this journey as being, critical business enablers in the industry?
I think the most successful CISOs, the top CISOs in the industry, will tell you probably maybe 3-4 things you need to focus on. So it's not enough anymore to be deeply technical. We have a lot of people who are deeply technical, but are unable to translate the technical jargon, the technical requirements into something that business can understand. You also have a group of people that focus heavily on the risk side. So risk quantification, able to speak to CFOs, but not deeply technical. You need a combination of both, right? You need to be able to combine understanding of risk, understanding of business priorities. You do have to have a really good understanding of technology, security controls in general, and be able to translate it into something that the business can understand. Because we sometimes forget the reason why we exist is to enable business, right? If the business are not enabled, if they're slowed down because of friction with the security, the business could shut down, business could die, revenue growth slows, right? There's impact on efficiency. So we need to be always mindful of what are we protecting and what are we enabling. And business enablement is a huge change or shift in the industry, probably in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, where the most successful CISOs are able to sit at the table, not just at the board of director levels, but at the executive level, and speak the business, right? And CISOs actually are uniquely positioned to work across all the different business units, right? They're not just deeply focusing on one domain. To be successful, you have to understand go-to-market. You have to understand financial side of it. You have to understand enterprise risk, and not just security risk, but enterprise risk side of it. You have to understand engineering, product management. So I think successful CISOs have aspects of almost every single domain to be successful in executive, and able to sit across the table with the rest of the executive team and contribute to the business growth.
That's great, Raz. Get to know the product, get to know the business, participate at that level. And I really like that observation. It's not about identifying all the risks in the business. It's about driving that balance of the right amount of risk that enables you to move at speed, continue to grow the business without taking undue risk. It's sort of like lawyers we work with, right? Our favorite lawyers are always the one who are not like, here are the 10,000 ways this contract could go wrong. It's like, you know what? Don't worry about these 9,000 ways. They're not that important. They're not going to impact our business. Here's where we should focus. And I think that's great advice for CISOs as well.
I mean, you see this over and over in the industry and the enterprises. They just get overwhelmed with security debt, right? If you think about things like vulnerability management, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of vulnerabilities. And the business just gets overwhelmed. 1, they don't understand the risk. 2, they don't know what to even do with this massive debt that come in their direction. CISOs need to be able to explain to them, here's the top risks, right? We don't need to worry about this type of classes of vulnerabilities, for example, because we might have other mitigating controls, or we might not care because it's not material risk to the company if something happens there. But we focus on things like maybe lateral movement, right? And other ways that we can mitigate the risk. And then you need to be able to explain it in terms that somebody's on the sales team or go-to-market team can understand. You can't just say, no, you can't open an office in specific country because risk is too high. Business needs to continue to move. Business needs to enable. So here's how do we do this in a secure and safe way, right size that risk for the company. That's probably the biggest skill that you need to develop as a CISO.
Yeah.
The second one, probably I would argue, besides being just a great leader and motivator, is ability to influence a change at the company level. A lot of times, not only we're there to protect the culture, but in some ways we need to continuously evolve the culture. It's a living organism. And CISOs need to be able to influence a change across a company, because it always starts with the culture. If the company and culture doesn't care about basic things like security or privacy, it's going to be really hard for you to succeed at your job. So helping understand, provide additional context, be non-blocking, but give the context that people can make risk decisions at the business level is part of our job. And influencing to get there is probably one of the bigger skills too.
I'd love to ask some rapid fire questions. Sure. Let's see how we do on these. Favorite Netflix show that you helped secure?
Oh, there's so many great shows. I would say probably my favorite shows are Squid Game, Stranger Things.
Oh, that's a good one.
Wednesday, the new season just came out, but there is a lot of great shows.
Stranger Things, Wednesday. My guess is you have kids.
Yes, no, my youngest is not allowed to watch many of those shows yet. She's only 6.
It's been incredible to see Netflix's sort of evolution over the years with these amazing shows.
Oh yes.
Okay, next question. CISO is a tough job. Toughest day as a CISO. We don't need to take company names or specifics, but just outlines of what was a really, really tough day.
I think you have to define what it means, tough day. There's many, right? And tough day could mean it's just you have 15 meetings back to back all day. That's tough. I would say probably Log4j. I was only 4 weeks into the job, maybe even less. Still don't even understand our posture, don't understand how we think about risk, and Log4j happened. That was tough because you kind of panic. One of the largest vulnerabilities and time to be able to defend was gone. And as I said earlier, I was very lucky, very capable team, but I got a crash course in everything within probably a few hours during that incident up front. That helped a lot, but that was tough because you had to suddenly not just understand the risk and what vulnerability means, but also understand architectural design, systems, ability to upgrade at scale or update at scale, mitigating controls, every single thing that usually takes 4 to 6 months to even get your mind wrapped around. I had to come up to speed within probably hours. That's tough, just mentally. Luckily, had a very strong team there to help through that.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, proudest moment.
I think I said earlier, one of the big things I get joy out of is seeing people develop and grow. So people who became CISOs or head of a function, got promoted many times, and thank me many years later for either advice or mentorship. I love seeing people grow and be successful. I believe that's part of one of my biggest roles, besides, of course, protecting the crown jewels and helping the company. That's probably the proudest moment professionally.
You recently joined Anthropic. When you joined, you must have had a plan for the first 90 days. What are the top, if you can share, 1 or 2 priorities that you had?
To be successful at this job, you have to build trust. You have to build relationship, because you're going to have to ask your peers to do something. They either don't have time, resources, or might not understand why it's important to do. To be able to do that, you have to build trust. And that means you have to build relationships. So first priority, of course, deeply understanding the company priorities, crown jewels, our risk appetite, technical architecture, how our system design, what are the security controls. So there is a lot of surface to cover technically, but in parallel, you have to build trust with your external partners across the company, not just in product and engineering, but across the business, go-to-market, legal, finance, talent teams, right? Because you're going to have to understand the business side of it pretty quickly. And then the third one is, of course, getting to know your team, understanding the issues, where the gaps are. So a lot of that you have to do in parallel.
Yeah. This is undercurrent in multiple answers. That's really important to point out. Your view of the CISO role is quite expansive. Building relationships with every functional leader, understanding the business, being a true sort of, seat at the table, at the C-suite, as a business leader, not just a security leader, is the underlying theme. And I suspect that's really one of the things that led to, frankly, your personal success as well. This ability to think beyond just, hey, here's a vulnerability, what do I do with it? To sort of taking a step back, it's like, this is the business we're running. And I think that's such great advice for upcoming CISOs as well. But CISOs are not the only audience that listen to us. I'm sure there's plenty of founders too who are building amazing cybersecurity companies. Cybersecurity startup landscape has evolved over the years as well, a lot. We have, the last 15 years, probably 100 times the number of cybersecurity companies. It's a noisy space. CISOs don't have time to go talk to all these startup vendors. I'm sure there's 20 new emails in your inbox, whether here or Netflix or Google. What's your advice for founders on how they can really make a genuine connection with CISOs, what would you recommend to them?
Start with anti-sell. Don't try to sell us something, right? Learn. Understand what we deeply care about. That's probably the best way to approach it. If you're going to send an email to a CISO or a LinkedIn message, it just goes into trash, right? People don't have time. You get hundreds of them on a regular basis. It's really hard to get through the noise and understand what's actually real, what's not. What I've seen very successful building those relationships, you start with listening. What are your top 3 risks that you really worry about, right? What keeps you up at night? And if I could solve one of those for you, would you be willing to become a design partner, right? Can we solve it together? Those are more successful founders and companies. If they come in with already perceived notion of what my biggest problem is and give me product to solve something that maybe addresses 1% of my total risk, right? I'm not going to engage with the vendor. It's not worth my time. I have other things to worry about. But the people who literally listen and want to understand what's our life like and what are the top 3, 5 things that we're dealing with on a regular basis, and they could solve one of those, it would make my life easier. Those are the successful part.
That's a great advice. Don't just start with marketing. Don't just start with here's my product. Starts with, hey, I just want to understand what your team's working on. What are your priorities? Let's see if there's an intersection. I think it's great advice actually for another reason too, because sitting on the other side, even me as a founder, it is so important to be protective of your time as a founder.
That's right.
And so instead of blindly marketing to thousands of CISOs, let's go figure out very quickly in the first few minutes, is there a genuine connection and fit here or not? If not, there's probably another enterprise that can use my product. That's why I really like that advice. It's just go explore that. Don't sell. Let's explore if there's intersection, if there's fit here.
And that's why engaging with the industry at seed level or even pre-seed level, where you have an idea that something you want to build, but you want to run it by a number of CISOs first to see if it actually solves any real problem, and not being completely married to the idea or the product vision, right? Be able to pivot very, very quickly based on the design early. That's what makes it successful, right? If you're already in Series A or later, you already have product roadmap, it's really hard to pivot at that point where the feedback is, doesn't solve real problems today, right? Yeah. So that partnership also is important for CISOs, right? In many ways, not too many companies like Google or Anthropic or Netflix that they have the culture and financial means to actually build things internally, right? Many companies rely on third parties to help them manage security at scale. And developing that partnership is really important for CISO also. Becoming design partners somewhere where you can help the company not just build the right product, but build a product that solves my problem and the features that I care about is also very important. It helps CISOs a lot. In the past, we didn't look at the community or industry through those lenses, and I think it's been changing in the last few years.
I really like that too.
I think like what Lightspeed doing and a few other VCs, I think it's really important because the only way we're going to fix this industry that we've been trying to fix for, I don't know how many years, 40 plus years now, right? Is if we work together with practitioners, with the industry, with the vendors to figure out what the real problems and real fixes are.
This has been a great conversation focused on AI and security. So I'm going to take the last question in a different direction. If you were not in cybersecurity, what would you be doing?
I don't even remember the world before cybersecurity,
Clearly
before
it had
tech.
an impact.
Yes. When I was young, I wanted to be a naval officer.
Oh, wow.
Luckily, I went a different direction. My family immigrated back in 89 or 1990 to US, and I immediately got lucky. I got connected to high-tech community and been in it since then. So I honestly can't think of what else I would be doing. Maybe something in finance. I do love the investing side of it, but yeah, I can't think of anything else. If it won't be for cybersecurity, I love being dead. I'm a big family man, so any free time I have, I spend with the family. So career-wise, that's probably would be my second career, though first priority.
Vitaly, this has been amazing. I mean, you're an amazing human being. You're an incredible cybersecurity executive, and you work at the frontiers of one of the most important waves of our times at the leading company of our times, Anthropic. It's just been a pleasure to build this relationship with you, to have you here today. Hopefully, not only do you keep our crown jewels and this critical infrastructure secure, but you're able to share the learnings with the larger cybersecurity community. And even more importantly, now where you sit, develop the tooling to help us move the industry forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.